Black Horse Off-Road Grill Guard is a great choice for the guys who are looking to add some serious front-end protection to their 2014 to 2018 Silverado. This is a perfect option for extreme off-roading or those who are just looking for that aggressive, beefed-up look that the guard like this offers. Now, it's got a very flashy chrome finish, lots of coverage up front, and mounting possibilities for additional add-ons like lighting. Now, the installation for this big guy is going to be pretty straightforward, no drilling or cutting really required, so I'm giving it 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. Now, it's pretty big and heavy, so having a helping hand on deck is definitely a good idea. There are quite a few brush guards and grill guard options floating around the aftermarket, but not all of them are actually suitable for off-road use. Some aren't built to withstand the impact, but this one absolutely is. The bars cover the entire front end, including the headlights with the extended bars with center lens protection. Now, the lower bars and upper bars provide extra support, but also make for a good opportunity for mounting lighting or winch add-ons given some added modification. This is made from a 1.5-inch tubular heavy-duty steel construction with that chrome or stainless steel finish, blending in really nicely with the chrome on the front of the truck. Now, the extended headlights are one of my favorite parts personally, but if you're not into that middle grille look here with those headlights, you can completely remove this portion thanks to that modular design, which is very easy. There are pre-drilled holes right here in the center for additional add-ons like cube lights. You won't have to worry about drilling into the actual brush guard yourself if you want to add them in the future. Obviously, this type of brush guard is extremely beneficial in the fight against off-road or worksite hazards, as well as parking lot shopping carts. But it also gears toward those who really want that front-end badass look. A hefty front guard like this really brings out the aggression in your truck, and with the chrome finish, it's really going to catch some eyes. Now, this is a little more of a serious protector from Black Horse, but it is still one of the more budget-friendly options in the category, coming in right around the $350 mark. To me, that's a steal. It's got everything you need in a brush guard, covering from the bottom bumper to the top of your grille, and you've got headlight coverage with detachable wings, and obviously some opportunities for lighting in the future. Now, the installation isn't too hard at all for this option. You're going to want to have a simple ratchet and socket set with some extensions on deck, and definitely the help of at least one friend since it is pretty heavy while you do the wrench work. It'll take about 2 hours from start to finish, and it's getting 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. Now, we pulled my own 2016 Silverado LT into the shop, so let's head over to see how we got this done. Now, in order to get our modular brush guard installed on my own 2016 Silverado, there are a couple preliminary steps we have to take. The first of which includes removing our factory tow hooks. Now, obviously, if your truck did not come with factory tow hooks off the line from Chevy, you can completely skip this step. In order to remove those tow hooks, there's a couple of things we need to do. There are also different methods to take to remove tow hooks. Some people do find it easier to remove the bumper and the upper grille. That's what we're going to do today because we do find it to be a little more necessary. If you think you don't need to do that and you can remove the tow hooks on your own without removing the bumper, feel free to do so, but to make our lives a little bit easier, we're going to go ahead and do that. So in order to start off, we're going to pop this hood, remove the radiator shroud, and get to work removing our grille. Right, we're going to use a panel removal tool. There are about 11 or 12 push pin clips holding on our shroud. So what we're going to do is kind of just put these under these clips and pry those things off. Since they are the plunger style push pin clips, they have a 2-step process. So you'll put your panel removal tool underneath that top portion and pull that up like a plunger, and that'll actually help you remove the entire push pin clip, and you can pull that straight back. Once those push pins are off, you can just lift this radiator shroud up and set it aside. Once the top radiator shroud comes off, we're gonna have to start removing the bolts holding on our factory upper grille. You're gonna grab a 10mm socket and a ratchet. There are 4 bolts right up the top here underneath that shroud, so let's get to work on those. Once the 4 top bolts are out of your factory upper grille, it's just a matter of using gentle but firm pressure. Now, you definitely don't want to break any of these push pin clips that are along here. You're going to have 1 across the top on each side under those bolts, but then you have a couple of push pin pressure clips, 2 on the right side, 2 in the middle, 2 on the left. So what you'll do is start from the top here and pull up and out toward yourself a little bit, making sure you're not breaking any plastic clips, and these pressure things should pop right out as well. Down here, you're actually going to put a little pressure on the bottom of the grill and pull straight back, and the grill will come off. It is just a bunch of pressure clips, so again, it will feel like it's stuck on, but put a little firm pressure on there and you'll pull it right off. Once the upper grille is removed, there are a total of 6 bolts holding the bumper on that'll allow you to pull it off from there. 4 of those bolts are up top here, 2 are gonna be underneath. Now the 4 up here are gonna be 17mm bolts, so have your 17mm socket handy and your ratchet, which we've got here. You're gonna remove your 17mm on both sides. There's one right up top and then one on the inside of the bracket. Same thing for the opposite side. They're super easy to get to. Obviously this one you don't really need an extension, but the inside one, it would be helpful to have one on deck. Once those are removed, you go underneath this splitter and there's gonna be one 15mm socket on the inside here holding onto a bar. Same thing for the opposite side. We're gonna tackle the ones underneath first so that these will support the bracket and it doesn't fall on your face. From there, we'll come up here and remove the 17mm and pull the bumper right off. Now, when you're removing these 15mm bolts underneath here, you'll notice that there is this long bar. This side has the 1 bolt, the other side has 2. We find that you don't need to remove those 2 if you just get this one on the right side. Once this comes off, this is really what's holding the bumper to that bracket or that bar. So with this 1 bolt out of the way, you won't have to worry about doing any extra work. We can finish that off by hand. Once you have those 15mm underneath taken care of, just break loose these 17s up top. They are torqued down from the factory, so they are really tight. So you might want to just put a little elbow grease into it. You'll break these things loose, and then you should be able to grab them out by hand. We're going to do the 2 up top first, and then I'm going to grab an extension and get the ones down low. All right, with the top ones out of play, we can just grab a little bit of a longer extension to make our life a little easier. Strapped it onto a ratchet, still using the 17mm. We're gonna go a little bit deeper. This one, again, is facing directly up toward you, so it's a little easier to get to. And you're just gonna wanna break that one loose. There we go. For this last 17mm, this is the last one holding on your front bumper. So once this comes off, your bumper is most likely going to drop off of the frame. Since I'm working by myself here, I'm gonna keep a knee on it so that it just stays up on these brackets once the last bolt is out. If you have a helping hand, make sure they're just holding onto the bumper so it doesn't fall. But once this bumper bracket bolt comes out, the bumper will be free to come off. Get that bolt out, set the ratchet aside, come up to the middle of the bumper, just kind of slowly feed it off of your frame and set it aside. With the bumper out of place, we're just gonna remove the tow hooks on our front end. Now, each tow hook, one for the driver, one for the passenger side, they're both held on by 2 bolts. One bolt goes all the way through that frame and is held on by a nut on the other side. The other bolt stops midway through, and you'll see that when we start wrenching. Now, I'm gonna use my 18mm socket on the one side with an extension. The other side, for the bolt that goes all the way through, we're just gonna hold on to that nut with a wrench just to make our lives easier. So I'm gonna start down here on that front bolt. We can wrench that off and get things going. That nut off of there, and we'll be able to pull that bolt out from the other side. Now it looks like the socket's actually stuck on there. There's not a lot of room with the top of this bracket here, so we might have to bang that out from the other side. There we go. So now that we got that nut off the other side, this bolt is actually being held on by this bracket. There's not a lot of clearance here, not enough clearance at least to get this bolt through, as you can see. So what we're gonna have to do is remove the 3 bolts here on this faceplate, pull that off in order to get this back bolt through, because there is just not enough room to work with here to get this bolt out. So let's get these off, faceplate off, we'll pull the bolt out, remove the rest of the tow hook, and then we're gonna put this plate back on. Now with this bracket off, we can actually switch back over to our 18 mil, pull that bolt all the way through. We have one more bolt holding this tow hook on. This one does not go all the way through, so we don't need our second wrench. What we'll do is just put our 18 mil on there, get this bolt out, and this tow hook will slide right out. So now that we got this front facing plate off on the other side, we're just gonna remove everything we need to for this tow hook on this side, and we're switching over to power tools just to make our lives a little easier. Hand starts to get tired after a while of just wrenching the same couple of bolts over and over. So we're still using our 15mm socket here. We're just gonna back out these 15 mils. Once that last bolt comes out, you just wanna make sure you're there to catch this faceplate so it doesn't fall off on you. With that out of the way, we can finish up with these 2 bolts holding our tow hooks on, get that out of the way, and we'll put the plates back on. Take our wrench back out here for this side. Hold on to your tow hook when you're taking out that last bolt, because that will be another thing that kind of falls out on you, and it can just slide right out when you're done with that. Now that we got our tow hooks out, we're ready to install the brackets and mounting gear and hardware to get our brush guard installed. Now we're gonna start here on the driver's side where the tow hook used to be. We're gonna use those factory mounting locations, and for each side, you're going to need the tow hook bracket here. You're gonna need this single bolt, and we have another double bolt that we're gonna use to go through, the double side and the single side. Along with that, you'll need 3 of the 18mm nuts included in the kit, as well as the spacers. Now, all of the hardware you need is in the kit. You're not reusing any factory bolts or any factory nuts or hardware. So now that we have everything set up here, what I'm gonna do is take this driver's side bracket, slide it into place, and you'll line up these 2 bolts in the pre-cut holes. We're gonna use our double-sided bolt here, and it's gonna go from the inside, and you're gonna feed that through. With that through, take one of our spacers, throw that on, take our nut, and just feed that by hand. We're just gonna tighten them down by hand just so we have everything into place, and then we'll take our 18mm socket and tighten them up. So again, spacer, 18 nut, down by hand. Same thing for that single bolt side. So you'll notice that with each one of these bracket bolts, the bolt is favoring one side, it has a little bit of excess on the other. That side is going to be facing the inside of the vehicle. So if you put it in this way, that excess is going to be a little bit in the way with the brackets. So we're going to face that toward the inside of the vehicle. Now we're going to take that, we're going to put this into place through that factory hole. Again, spacer and nut. Spacer on first, 18mm nut, tighten by hand. Now that we got this into place, we know that this is good and ready. We're gonna take our 18mm socket, tighten things up. All right, now we're moving on to the passenger side, exact same thing. We're gonna take our bracket, double holes, line those holes up. I'm gonna take our double bolted bracket and put this through those holes. Same thing here. Spacer, nut. And same thing for the single bolt. Tighten down by hand, everything is centered. straight. We're gonna take our 18 socket, tighten things up. With the brackets in place, we can actually start putting our factory parts back together, starting with the face plate, and we'll move on to the lower bumper and the upper grille. The only reason we had to take those off in the first place was to remove our factory tow hooks, just to gain access to those bolts and install our new brackets. All that's taken care of, so I'm gonna start by putting this face plate back onto our passenger side with these 3 bolts here, and then we'll continue from there. Grab our 15mm socket again. Next step here, we're gonna get our factory bumper back onto the frame. Now, it is a little bit on the heavy side. It's not impossible to do by yourself. I'm gonna lone wolf it today just to show you guys that it is possible here. You're just gonna muscle it onto the frame here, make sure the bolts are lined up to the pre-drilled holes in the bumper itself. There's 4 bolts here on the front end, if you remember, the same spots we took them off earlier. 1 up here on each side, and then 1 down below. Now I'm gonna put this thing back up, put those 4 bolts into place, and then we've got 2 more, 1 on each side underneath the truck. Line those bolts up. All right, into place there. All right, we're gonna go with the bottom bolt first. Again, it's an 18mm. I got the holes lined up, and you can see where it used to be. You can see the marks it left on that bracket. So I'm gonna kind of use that as a reference, just to make sure it's kind of the exact same way it was from the factory. I'm not gonna torque it down just yet, just to make sure everything lines up properly. But you're just gonna get it nice and snug with your ratchet or your power tools. Same thing for this other side bottom bracket bolt. Feed that down there. Nice and snug. Now we can tackle those top ones. All right, last but not least, this top upper bolt. Now it looks like this bracket is just a little bit off, so we might have to muscle this back on a little bit just to get our bolt in, but start muscling that thing on, it finds its way. All right, with the bolts up top taken care of, we have 2 more underneath. If you remember, they were across that bar, 1 in each corner. We're gonna head underneath there and install those. All right, so here is that plastic tab that I was just speaking of. Since that is in the way, when you slide this bracket in, it's just gonna stop you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our really sharp blade here and just slowly cut straight across. Now, a little crooked, so we're gonna go over that again on the other side. Now with that out of the way, we do have enough room to slide our bracket in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our pry bar and just very little bit slide this underneath. Once you have the nuts on the bottom side over top of the splitter and you have it into place, you can use this curved portion to line it up. These things will actually line up perfectly. So if you have these on top of each other, the bolt holes are gonna be lined up perfectly with where you need them to be, and you'll be able to feed your bolts through the top and tighten them down to the nuts underneath. Once your bracket's into place, you'll have 3 8mm bolts that already has a lock and a flat washer already on there. You're gonna use your 8mm wrench. Now it is a tight spot in the back 2 bolts. We're gonna do the front one first just to keep the bracket in line so it's not moving around. I'm gonna feed that in and tighten that down by hand. Just get it snug enough that you get a little playroom, but you know, you can still keep it in place. Next, we'll feed these back to the next bolts. Now this one's going to be tricky. You might have to use just a couple of fingers to tighten it by hand at first, just to get it into place. Once you get it in there, you just feed it through by hand as best you can before you can get the ratchet in there, just to give yourself enough room. Next step in the process, we still have the grill and the radiator shroud out of place. What we need access to is this crossbar right here for these 3 additional pieces. Now, these pieces are labeled R and L for each side of the truck. Right-hand side is your passenger, left-hand side is your driver. What's gonna go first are these 2 black brackets. Now, you have a squared off one and kind of the plate system here. Now, this crossbar has like a wiring harness bracket already on it. We're gonna use that as a reference. This squared off bracket is gonna go directly on top of that crossbar, and this S-shaped bracket is gonna go underneath and bolt to it. So it's gonna sandwich together like this with that crossbar going in between. So we're gonna install that to this portion, and we're gonna do the exact same thing for the other side. All right, putting these 2 brackets in place, again, they're gonna sandwich. If you're looking at it straight on, the squared off bracket's on top, the plate is gonna go onto the bottom. Now, again, these are labeled R and L. The R is going to be on the system there. These squared off brackets are good for either side, but the S shape, you want to have the R on the passenger side, L on the driver's side. So, squared off bracket on top, plate on the bottom. We're going to use our 6mm bolt. You want to take a lock washer, put that on first, flat washer goes on second. Put it through the top, and try to line that up with the hole there, and just tighten it down by hand at first. Now when you tighten these down, you want to make sure that this bracket is as close to this wiring harness bracket as possible. That's kind of the guiding source for where you want to bolt this down. You're going to grab your 10mm socket and wrench this on. Now you want to make sure where you're tightening this up is as close to that wiring harness bracket as possible, because that's where you want it to be. Get that nice and snug. Look on the other side. All right, next up, we're gonna do the exact same thing for the other side. We get our square bracket and the plate bracket labeled L for the driver's side. Now, because there is no wiring harness on this bar, there really isn't a reference point, so we're gonna eyeball it the same as the passenger side. It goes to about the dead center. So what we're gonna do is kind of put the square bracket there, line up our plate bracket and hold it into place. Line up those holes, take our bolts here and bolt it down. So when you're putting these bolts in, I would suggest not tightening them down all the way, just because if this position you have the brackets in is not perfect and you need to make adjustments, they won't be too tight in order for you to do that. So we're gonna tighten these down by hand, give them a little snug pull on the ratchet, but just enough to let us make adjustments later if needed. Just so it's snug so it doesn't move, but we can still loosen that up pretty easily. So the next in line with the install is your L brackets here for the upper portion of the brush guard. Now, when you're installing these, you'll have to pop the upper grill off, slide the brackets through the opening in the grill, line them up with the brackets we previously installed, and then bolt them down with an extension through the top here. Now, once you have them bolted down, you might want to leave a little bit of room for adjustment, since you'll have to line them up with your bottom bracket just to get them installed on your brush guard. Now, once you have them adjusted and lined up properly where you want them, you can pop this grill back into place after you bolt them down completely. Grill's back in place, you'll pull up your body of the brush guard and you can bolt it down to your bracket. Now, I've already got these brackets lined up to where I want them to be, so I'm just gonna go ahead and tighten these down, get them nice and snug. But this might take you a few times of trial and error just to get them lined up properly. Once they're on, you can close this grill back up and get to work on the body of the brush guard. So the next step in the process is to throw the body of our brush guard up onto the truck here. Now what we're going to use, we've got 17mm bolts in the kit here that we're going to use. We have lock washers and a flat washer on it. Then you're going to have a flat washer and a nut go onto the other side. When you bolt them down, you have the nut and the washer on the inside, bolt, lock washer, flat washer on the outside. Once your bolts are in place, take your 17mm socket and the socket on the other side holding the nut, and you can bolt everything down. Next up, we're going to assemble our wings or our headlight guards here. They are perfect shape, so you really can't get this one wrong. You'll have a left side and a right side, driver and passenger. The rubber kind of gripping here on the ends does tend to come off a little bit. Just feed it back on, and they'll stay in place once you have this thing bolted down. So we're going to put this into place here, and your first bolt is actually going to go through this little slotted hole in your wing. It's going to go straight through to the body of the brush guard, and you're going to bolt it down from the other side. Next up, we're going to assemble the wing on the opposite side. Again, line those bolts up. To finish up the install, you've got 6 Allen head bolts that you're going to put through. Obviously, you're going to again have the bolt and a flat washer on one side, washer on the other side, followed by the nut. There's going to be one up top here. We're going to bolt that down. And then there's 2 on the bottom here, right under your L bracket. Do the same thing for the opposite side. To finish things up here, you're going to use your 10mm socket and ratchet or a wrench, hold the nut from the inside, and use the Allen key provided in the kit for you to tighten things up. To finish things off here, all we're going to do is reinstall our 4 10mm bolts for our upper grille, throw on our radiator shroud, and then we're good to go. All right, since this is the plunger push pin, it's going to be a 2-step process. Push the first step in, push the top piece down. And with that bracket installed, that wraps up our installation here. So if you like the brush guard here from Black Horse, all you have to do is check it out right here at AmericanTrucks.com.